What's
Hey, Jack.
Hey, Dr. Lexi, how you doing? It's been a
How you
while.
doing? I know. Look, we done weathered the storm and then weathered the storm again. How's it going tonight?
If I call it, I might spoil it.
Is you rhyming? Okay, a little bit of Muhammad Ali there. What am I
You
have to
know I'm
do?
a poet and I know it. I read something the other day that says Muhammad Ali's second wife took credit for all that. She said she was a poet and she could believe it sometimes that Ali would just take her words and get in an interview and use it. She said that was all her stuff.
Oh my. Okay. Well, if it was, let me tell you something. He made it look good. If it was hers, he made it look
Yeah,
good. That's all I
I
can say.
agree.
I
I
know.
agree.
So tell me, what's happening in the streets of Cafe Instable over there?
Hey man, well, we got um, Delta had started kind of making people wonder, oh my God, maybe, and then Ida came, so if Delta buckled our knees a little bit, Delta Ida came with the uppercut, but a complete knockout, at least for 2 months.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. But hey, my phone's ringing again. A lot more people are feeling more comfortable with going out and trying to, get back to some normalcy. And apparently the numbers are still relatively low here in New Orleans. And if that can continue, then maybe we could keep pressing forward.
Well, there was a test that seemed to work out well. They did the Halloween parade, the Crew of Boo,
Hmm.
and they estimated roughly around 63 thousand people out
Hmm.
there. And so far the numbers haven't risen. There hasn't been like an epidemic to say they're going to shut stuff down. So I think we're kind of over the hill. We're still climbing. We're still going downward, but I think we've topped the hill and we're going kind of down. So I'm optimistic that we're going to start to see more things open, more things going on, more normalcy coming back. I'm thinking Mardi Gras. Well, at least the mayor is saying Mardi Gras with a little bit of a change. I think they're saying everybody's going to go down the same route. So, I don't think that's going to be a huge deal. I know people are saying they like to go through the neighborhoods, they like to go through everybody. If everybody's going down St. Charles, I think it'll work out better.
Now, what
Um,
about the smaller parades that happen in the Marigny, like Crew de Vue and they got a lot of little small parades where they don't have like the massive floats. They got smaller floats, and it's more about the marching bands and little organizations who do paper mache type stuff. I don't know, they seem to have a good time with it, but
they do. I mean, that's like the parade. I call it yeah, that's Crew de Vue, the one that's real creative. That they have a lot of stuff going. There's a lot of things happening at the Crew de Vue parade, but I think they're going to have to go that same route, from what I'm understanding. I think it's a combination of um, manpower, NOPD manpower, as well
Mhm.
as public works manpower.
Mhm.
I think it's trying to keep everybody, put the barricades up, keep them up in one central location, put the manpower up and keep them up in one central location. So I'm not sure, because you also have the West Bank, which is also New Orleans, and you have Namtok, which is, historically African American, huge parade in Algiers.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure if they're going to, change the route of that. That's the only parade that's Orleans that's on the West Bank. Otherwise it's Gretna and Jefferson Parish. But um, Orleans, Namtok is in Orleans Parish, so it's Algiers going into Algiers Point, historical areas, predominantly African American areas. So I'm not sure how they're going to do that. It's one of the biggest parades that they have on the West Bank. It's comparable to a lot of ones on the East Bank. It's very big, and it's
Mhm.
got bigger and bigger over the years. So I'm not sure. I think it has a lot to do with the manpower NOPD. We're going through some strange times, even with the COVID. A lot of officers have been lost because of COVID. It just, regulations have been differently. People have gotten sick. They just decided to either change careers or not come back. You've got the pay, which hasn't been risen. They're asking these guys to perform miracles. You got maybe one guy that's taking care of about 36 blocks. It's a lot. We hear a lot about the negative sides of law enforcement, but we're not hearing about the tireless effort these guys are getting into. I have relatives that are, saying they put the uniform on, they just put the shirt down, go home, take a couple hours, and they got to be back because they're short. It's just not enough people. And crime is rising among our youth. Um, it's just an epidemic. It's a pandemic that we're having besides COVID in the city of New Orleans. And it's not something we can't handle, but we're gonna have a lead on it. We have to have some leaders take the reign and do something besides give lip service to it. You can't have officers that are tired beyond and don't have backup and don't have things going on. You can't continue to close down businesses. Listen, I understand the mandates. I understand being safe, but you've had a lot of people aren't really talking about it, but you have a lot of mom and pop businesses in New Orleans that just couldn't make it. You got a lot of people in the French Quarter just couldn't make it. Um, we know Cafe Instable is still holding on and still doing well, but you've had to go through that hump also. And so we're a touristy city, but we're not treating our hospitality industry. Our hospitality industry is still having issues. And so the problem becomes, what are we going to do? So, that brings up what we have now going on, elections, and you kind of veer into that. You have a lot of people talking, saying a lot of things, a lot of elected officials that are already in office, a lot of people who are looking to be in office. But if you listen to them, they're saying things that really aren't comparable to what they can actually do. For example, potholes. We know we've been, Chuck, how long we've been, like, listen, you could drive down some streets in New Orleans and lose your entire car. Like, look, your whole engine left back there. It's bad, but we have to figure out a way. And it starts with the budget hearings. There's budget hearings going on right now. And I hear people saying all the time, we're not informed, we don't know what's going on, blah, blah, blah. But the it's open to the public. There is live feed. Nobody's paying attention to it. It's like there's an election going on in the middle of budget hearings, but people are so focused on the candidates, the actual candidates, but they're not looking at what's actually going on in the city, where the money is going to be spent, what's being allocated. You have department heads that are coming to these meetings that are talking about where the issues are, what's going on. But people aren't tuned in. They're tuned into the actual candidate for the election because that's sexy. It's sexy to look at who's running. Is this my friend? For us to put some negative press out, for us to kind of go into the uh, I say the glamour part of elections. But I'm really not hearing the meat and potatoes. I don't know, maybe I'm missing some things, but I'm really not hearing the substance that needs to be heard from not only officials that are in office now, but from people who are seeking office. Are you hearing anything, Chuck, substance wise, besides the same old?
Well, they got a lot of people running, and so sometimes it's really difficult to kind of hear what everybody's saying. I got to tell you that little brother running for council in District C, Freddie King. I like. I've heard him a couple times. I like what he has to say. I think he has a pretty solid platform. I did have some people call me because they wanted to you know, they thought that the mayor should be challenged. I said, but like, who do you have in the election as a viable candidate? I really don't see one. That was like, man, if that's the kind of conversation you wanted to have, you were supposed to be having that a year ago. You know
two
what I'm
years
saying?
ago 2 years ago,
Right,
and people
right.
don't realize that when you listen, when you look at Mayor Cantrell and what she's done, if we, if we're realistic, whether you like her or don't like her or feel whatever way, You have to look at how she maneuvered through this pandemic. New Orleans was ground zero when COVID started. And yes, she, shut down a lot of stuff and stopped a lot of things. When you are the party city, basically, of the South of America, basically, where people like to come and have a good time and eat and enjoy and get drunk and whatever else, and that gets shut down, you're not going to be popular. But if we're looking at where we are as far as where the numbers are, how many people we lost, some things are bigger than dollars. But I also understand the economic side of it. If you have businesses that are closed for so long and then you put stipulations on them, people are going to go elsewhere. There's such a thing as choice. So even though New Orleans is the mecca for great food, great hospitality, the best music, people are going to say, well, if I got to show a vaccination card and I got to do this and they got to do this, well, you know what? It's just not worth it. I'm going to go somewhere else. And so it's a trickle down effect because already our hospitality industry, they're not paid enough. They're not paid enough. The wages that people in the hospitality industry make here compared to what the actual businesses make, I hear the complaints from people saying, oh, nobody wants to come to work because they're getting too much money on unemployment. Okay, well, then let's take a look at that. If people are willing to stay home, as you're saying, and get unemployment, then come to work, then maybe you should reevaluate the wages that you're paying these people
Hmm.
and look at where the wages are as compared to why they're sitting home and not coming to work, which I don't believe that because I've seen a lot of people back at work. And I think it's like anything else. Those that do, and those that don't. You're always going to have people who are going to take advantage of situations. But the majority of the people are back at work and they're trying to make a living. But it's hard. It's hard when you have children that are at home, schools. We've been going through, schools are open, they close, schools are open, they close. So then parents who are working, they've got to figure out a way, okay, little Jimmy's at home and I got to find a babysitter and I got to go to work. And it's a lot of things that are on the surface that people aren't hearing. And these are some of the things that I was hoping to hear from a lot of the officials that were running for office. See, it's easy to say, I want to change, I want to be the change maker, I'm going to do this differently from this person. My point is, okay, so if you're going to do this different, if Jim is going to do something different from Tim, I need to hear what Jim is going to do, not what Tim didn't do. I need to hear what Jim's platform is, not the negligence that Tim didn't do. Because if you spend the majority of your time talking about what this person didn't do and how they didn't do it, and you're not giving people an opportunity to learn who you are and what you're bringing to the table, then I'm going to tell you 28 years of seeing this, I know what's going to happen. Two things are going to happen. They're either going to go in there and vote for the person they know, or they're going to sit at home. That's what's going to happen. And
Hmm.
you're seeing this across the country. Apathy is at a high. We have. I was on a panel 2 weeks ago about healthcare disparities and systematic racism. And the main thing that people said to me was, "We're tired. We're tired of being expected but not respected." One lady stood up and she said, "Listen," she said, "there's such a mandate on every community, the Asian community to get, bills passed, LGBTQ community to get bills passed, and we're still fighting for civil rights and voting rights." And so some of the people that were there feel like there's a disconnect, a huge disconnect within the Democratic Party and their base. The base, make no mistake about it, the base of the Democratic Party is African Americans, has always been. That is the base. But the base has been pushed to the side for other things. And people are now saying, you know what? We're not going to allow it anymore. And so that's why you see so many people sitting out elections. Virginia, Virginia, there were seats that were flipped to Republicans in Democratic districts because people said, you came in here and you shoved the message down our throat, but you didn't talk to us. You didn't ask us what our issues were. You didn't ask us what issues we were facing. You didn't care what was going on with us. You basically thought if you came in here and threw two pieces of chicken and a biscuit at us, and threw in some, you brought in Barack Obama and you brought in this one and you brought in that one, so you think that you're still doing us a justice, and you're not. See, the difference in the Republican Party and Democratic Party right now is that the Democratic Party is continuing to do the same thing they've been doing for the past 30 years. Now, the Republican Party has been doing the same. The Republican Party has three things they stick to. I call it the three G's: God, guns, and gays. The Republican Party is like the Catholic Church. You can be in Virginia and you can be in Louisiana. On a Sunday, service is going to be the same. It's universal. You can be in Rome. They're going to give you the same message for church. The Republican Party has the same message no matter where you go. You can be in the city, the country, rural area. God, guns, gays. They've stuck to that. The Democratic Party reinvents itself every 4 years. Every 4 years, every 3 to 4 years, it's a new issue, it's a new platform, it's everything that they promise and nothing that gets delivered. And people are getting tired of it. And so what they're saying is you're painting this picture of Republicans are racist, Republicans are this, Republicans that, Donald Trump is this, he's horrible, he's this and that and other. But that's all you're telling them. That's all they're hearing. You're not telling them why. You're not sitting down and saying, listen, okay, we understand that in Fairfax County, you have an issue here with the student teacher ratio, that you have education standards that are not being met. You're not talking about that with them. And so you expect them to go to the polls and vote for Terry McAuliffe when Terry McAuliffe hasn't given them a message that resonates with them. That would have worked 8 years ago. It's not going to work anymore. And the worse the messaging gets, the more the apathy returns. And that's just what's happening, because we've been having healthcare issues in the African American community forever. They have all these panels and this issue and that issue and blah blah blah, but you're not tackling it. Listen, you know that sickle cell is my passion. You know that research is inadequate. Who's the last president to sign a bill that aids sickle cell? Now, like him or not, that's who did it. Whether you want to say it was for a stunt or
Who
you
did
want
it?
to say something, Donald Trump. The Sickle Cell Consortium was invited to the White House for the first time ever, ever, ever in history. And that was done under this president. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying that Donald Trump and the Republican Party is any better or any worse. What I'm saying is their messaging is resonating, because what they're doing is they're actually doing the polling and the data and the research, and they're finding those little niches with the Democratic Party base, and they're finding out what the issues are, and they're addressing those issues. And that's why you see, you know, when you see people they call, oh, it's Black Republicans, they're this and that. The reason why you see more and more of them is because they're coming into the party. Listen, there was a Black Democratic woman who was going to run in Virginia. I believe that there were people who were put on the shelf that would have made a better run for Terry McAuliffe. Winsome Sears is the first Black woman ever elected as lieutenant governor in the state of Virginia. She's a Republican. She's a Republican, but it doesn't take away from the history that has been made there. So what I say is, if they're able to resonate and go into these communities and find these people and get them to run and get behind them and get their messaging done and do the research and get people from all races to get on board with this woman and get in there and get her to vote and vote statewide. I'm not talking about little districts. I'm talking about the entire state. And to get beat horribly. What's going on? I'll tell you what's going on. Black people are saying, you know what? You're so busy over here worried about this, and this, and you're not addressing our issues, then good luck. That's what's happening. And in New Orleans, the general public, especially in the African American community, has been beat down so bad from gentrification, from house values, from lower education system, uh, the hospital system, so bad that people are now tired, and they basically feel like there's no hope. There's no hope. There's not going to be any difference. So why should I go out there and do it? And so there's little niches within New Orleans that have found that. They see that. That's why you see so many new people running, because they recognize it. They're not stupid. They see it. Look, social media is something that everybody pays attention to. You got all the different areas, because social media has gotten very much popular since people can't go out, and we're reserved from going places. So social media has become a big deal. So people are seeing what they're seeing, and they're using that to go in and say, well, you know what? This person isn't doing this, and this person is doing that. This is a good chance for me to put somebody in the race and run against it. Because here's the thing: even if they run now and they don't win, their name is out there, their face is out there. In 4 years, they're coming back. Now, as far as the mayor, I'm just like you. If you were going to try to beat Mayor Cantrell, you was going to have to start in 2017, 2018. If you were going to try to develop a plan, because Kenner, Slidell, and Metairie can make all the noise they want. They can put money behind whatever candidates they want. But at the end of the day, they're not voting in Orleans Parish. So that's not going to make a difference. And Latoya Cantrell is going to be reelected mayor of the city of New Orleans. So whatever is going on, the disconnect within the different groups, it needs to be put together. We know that there have always been groups in New Orleans. That is what has been, you got Bold, you got Soul, you have Progressive, you got all Life, you got all these different organizations. It's like a gang. You got the Crips, the Bloods, that's what I call it. And so each faction has their own thing. The problem is that worked back in the Morial days and the Bartholomew days and all those Jefferson days. That worked. You don't have the same type of voters. You don't have the same type of strength, and you don't have the same type of numbers. So I think it's time in the city of New Orleans for all of these groups. And I know there's a lot of egos. So look, I know I'm talking in the wind because there's too many egos for them to want to do it. But if you really want to see real change and you really want to see something done, it's time for y'all to put all them groups aside and combine together and put your resources together and educate the community, and then put people in office that are actually going to do what needs to be done, and give them a support system, give them a supporting cast to be able to do it. You can't expect one person to make a difference and totally change around his district, he or she's district, in 4 years. It's not going to happen. They can make some changes, but it's not going to happen. So I think as long as we continue doing the infighting and all the little different groups and everything else, New Orleans is going to be stagnant. And within 6 to 7 years, it's really going to be what they wanted it to be when Katrina hit.
I mean, but is that what politics is, though? I mean, to me, it just seems like, you always have these different camps. Everybody's vying for power. Everybody's trying to get the power, because if you have the power, then your camp will have the spoils and the money and all of the other stuff that comes along with it. But I mean, that's why a lot of people say, politics is a dirty business.
Well,
Um,
the problem with that is, Chuck, is that you don't have the same armor as you had previously. You don't have the same soldiers that you had previously. So you're not going to have the same type of as they say, this one's going to be able to control this, and this one's going to be. What happens is you're being diluted because you don't have the same power that you had before. You don't have the same power structure. It's not there anymore. The power structure is not there because you don't have the same amount of people. So what's happening is it's like if I have a tree and a pecan tree, and there's 12 pecan pickers that are there, and we just got one tree to pick from, where we used to have six trees to pick from. So all those everybody's picking pecans is picking under this one tree. So you're only going to get a limited amount, and then you're going to run out. And then what's going to happen? What happens when you run out and there's everybody's vying for it? You start getting people fighting each other. You start getting people trying to push people aside because the supply and demand is not the same. That's the same thing that's happening in this political structure. That's why you see the difference now of the candidates. You can listen, there was a time when you had people who were in office and they were what you call incumbents, and nobody ran against them. You just knew that the structure was there, the power was there, and you didn't run against them. Now you have people who have been elected officials and been in office for a while, and there's people running against them, just John Q down the street, that they wouldn't normally do that. There's a power shift. There really is. There's a power shift, and New Orleans is going to find themselves looking a lot different than they normally look. And the only way to do that is through unity. And I know that that's a huge deal because that's not something that's going to happen easily at all.
So, so what kind of power shift you think we're going to have, Lex?
I think the power shift is going to be more of business people. I think the business people now see an opportunity. A lot of your business people now see an opportunity to come in and kind of get behind people, raise money, and put those people, put the face of those people with the money. Because politics is strange. You don't really have to be a politico and a well vested politician. If you have the right messaging and you have the right amount of money and you're able to reach the masses, you can put somebody up there against polished politicians. Listen, I'll give you a prime example. Donald Trump ran against polished politicians, people who were the creme de la creme in their areas. He came in with a different message. He came in with an energy. He came in with, exuberant things and telling people what they wanted to hear. And he had a different message that people weren't hearing. You can look across the country, not here in New Orleans, but across the country, and you'll see there are African Americans being elected, men and women, in their 20s. That's never happened. No, you never had a 25 or 30-year-old mayor in the city of New Orleans. This is happening because the power structure is changing, but our power structure isn't changing socially. Those places are changing because of social justice, because of reform, because of education, because of unity. Our structures aren't changing because of that. Our structures are trying to hold on. The old regime is still trying to hold on. They really are. The problem is in 3 to 4 years, there's no preparation. And so it's going to leave you without the next person to come behind. Whereas the other side is going to have that preparation. And they're already preparing who they're going to run. Right now, they know LaToya is going to win. That's a given. So what you do now is you start preparing who's going to run against the next person, not LaToya, but whomever is going to run. They're preparing now so that when those 4 years come, they're going to already have raised the money. The messaging is going to be on point, and you're going to know kind of who it is just by paying attention by not this year, but the next year, because that person will start popping up at events and being more vocal and being more out in the public. That's how it goes. The problem with Dems, like right now, John Bell is termed out. You see Jeff Landry everywhere. You don't have to question whether Jeff Landry is running for governor. You know he is because he's on every station that he can get on. He's doing all kinds of things so he can make sure his name is out there. He's talking to his base. He's not trying to talk to anybody else. He's talking to his base. He's getting that energy. He's raising money. And by the time the election comes along, he's ready. Where's your Dem candidate? Where's your Dem candidate?
No, what I wanted to ask you about was brother, the DA, Jason Williams, and you know, on the we talked. There's something we talked about the last time, and that is there've been a lot of inroads for criminal justice reform. Like I think a lot of the protests and everything that happened with George Floyd, crystallized some things for some folk, and it was actually like a sort of bipartisan thing for this criminal justice reform. Now, you mentioned the pandemic. And so, it's one of the things that you and I and Brother Wayne, we were talking earlier, and Wayne was talking about how, a lot of the same things we're talking about here in New Orleans, the same things, they experiencing some of the same stuff in Atlanta. And when you look at the crime, the uptick in crime and homicide and violent crimes, it's not just New Orleans and Atlanta, but in, like big cities all across the country. I would think that the pandemic has a lot to do with that. I don't know if it's because people don't have their jobs, people becoming depressed. People have, like your grandma used to say, a idle mind is a devil's workshop. You got people sitting home and, coming up with all kinds of plans to do some crazy stuff, right? Now, because of the uptick in violent crime during the pandemic, unfortunately, that has put a lot of I think it's starting to make some people second guess some of the gains that have been made with the criminal justice reform. Now, one of the things I see with the DA, and when I was on the other radio station, I actually had the guy from the Crime Commission, Raphael Gorianetti, and the guy who does Mike Pearlstein. I had them come on my show once to talk about the cash bail because, they were doing these exposés and they were so outraged because such and such, this person did this crime. And, and he was out on bail, right?
Right.
Now, let me just say this. I have a family, I have daughters, I have, brothers and sisters and parents and you know and I don't want my people to be victimized by some over some dumb stuff. You understand? I don't want that. And I know that there's some guys out there who do it. But the issue is that when you talk about cash bail, essentially the way our system is set up right now is you can have two people to murder someone, right? And let's put it this way: you can have two people accused of murder, and it hasn't even we haven't even been able to ascertain if, in fact, they are the ones who committed the crime. And the one person who is indigent doesn't have a lot of resources. Even if the judge say, "Okay, your bail is $50,000," that person might have to sit in jail for a couple of years and wait until it works its way through the process because he don't have the money. And on the flip side, if you have somebody who has enough money, right, and he in his case has a bond, right, a bail, then he could go home and wait until he get his day in court because he have enough money. Now, to me, that's insanity. But I've been seeing that it seems like the DA is under a lot of fire right now because people are saying that that is unfair. If a rich man kills somebody, if he can get out on bail and get his day in court, then the person who doesn't have his money, they shouldn't have to just sit and what about the people who are innocent, who've been accused of the crime but they're innocent and they don't have money to get out on bail. Now you got to stay in jail just for that. So I've been first of all, I appreciate the fact that Jason Williams He ran on that platform. He said that he was a reformer, and I appreciate the fact that he's sticking to his guns. But the news media, when you got like Channel 4 and Nola and the Times Picayune, NOLA.com, and all of them, because they don't like it, they get to shape the public's opinion. They get
Yes.
to run these stories and have everybody be like, "Oh my God, that's outrageous! What is wrong with this guy?" So, so what I want to know, Dr. Lex, what do you think about the cash bond, and what do you think about the way that our DA has been dealing with it?
Well, I'm going to tell you one of the problems that you touched on, and it's real. And, you know, when it's the haves and have nots, that's not, that justice is not supposed to be about the haves and have nots. Justice is supposed to be equal and fair. So if Tom has the money and he is being tried for the same crime, he has been arrested for the same crime that Tyrone has been arrested for. And if Tom has the resources to get out, but Tyrone doesn't, essentially what you've done is you've convicted Tyrone because Tom is going home and live his life, probably going back to work. You know, he might have some restrictions, but he's going back to work and he's going to live his life until he gets his time there. Meanwhile, Tyrone is going to have to stay in jail. He's going to have to fight for his life because jail, unlike what people would like to think when they see on these TV shows, jail is not a fashion, jail is not cool, and jail is not easy. So he's going to have to fight his way through. We're also going to have to understand that not only does this play on Tyrone's body, but it plays on his mind, his mental capacity. We don't even know if he's guilty. We don't know if he's guilty, but he is sitting in a jail cell until they're ready to try him. Do you understand the capacity of a person's mind if they are ready, especially if you know you haven't done anything and you're sitting in a jail cell waiting? That is prime pickings for someone to think about taking their lives because you got a lot of time on your hands doing that. I think what Jason is doing by trying to, I've seen all the clickbaits from NOLA.com, Times Picayune. Listen, this is what they do. I say it to somebody the other day. We have a real problem here with the media. The media plays a bigger role in the systematic racism and injustice than the actual racists do because the media sits there and they stirs the pot. That's how they get sponsors. Listen, nobody is going to click on a story that says little Judy brought her dog to the park and blah, blah, blah. They have to sensationalize everything. And if you've ever been, listen, I used to read the comments every day. I don't go in there anymore because you will lose your mind reading some of the comments that some of these people have in there. And that is what they do. They throw gasoline on the fire and light it, and then they watch it blaze. And then they let the people burn because that's basically what you're doing in the comment section. Meanwhile, nobody is paying attention to the fact that what I look at with this is even more than just the bail money. Psychologically, what are you doing to this young man who is now in jail because he's accused of a crime? There's been no trial. Nobody has said to him he is guilty and go to jail. He's just accused. But because his mom and daddy, sister, brother, whatever, cannot get the money together, he's now sitting in jail. And we don't even know if he's convicted of a crime. We don't know that. We only
See,
know that there's evidence and they've taken whatever evidence and they put him there. But we don't know if he's guilty of a crime. It's just like the thing that Jason Williams is doing with the youth. He is catching serious backlash for that because, you know, every time you turn on the television, they're running a story of a teen that's robbed somebody, killed somebody, raped somebody. Listen, one, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but what I do know is that the media manipulates. They manipulate. And so I'm not saying there's not crime going on out there. What I'm saying is they pick and choose which stories to report. and they pick and choose where to report and what circumstances to report. There's a lot of crime going on in places that we don't even know about. I mean, we know it, but it's not being publicized because it's easier to manipulate the areas that are going to be affected by the cash bail. See, if I get enough people riled up and saying, listen, they got to keep him in jail, they got to do this, they got to do that, that's going to be the consensus, and he's going to sit in there. And meanwhile, the person who had the money is out enjoying life, doing whatever they got to do. There's no stress or strain of being locked in a cell for 14 to 16 hours a day with your mind idle and, most times knowing that you were innocent. I think Jason Williams is going to take more hits. They're doing everything they can. Every time there's something that comes up that he's done something to assist somebody who may be having a issue with bail or whatever, there's a story that leaks about his troubles. Like it's not rocket science. Every time something comes up where he's done something to aid to try to balance the levels of justice, a story will come out with something that has to do with his troubles. Now, I'm not saying that I don't know what the man did or what he didn't do. I'm not on the jury. I haven't seen the evidence. It is what it is. But what I do know is that he has made some strides to stick to what he ran on, the platform he ran on. He has been, has he done everything? No. But he's been one of the few that has stuck to trying to at least try to make a difference in what's going on and making some changes. It's not big changes, but it's some changes. And in the justice system, any changes that you can make that are going to try to level off the playing field and make it equal is going to be tremendous.
What I would like for black folks to do though is to put on their critical thinking hats, examine this thing, and to pay closer attention to what's happening, right? Because one of the biggest problems we talking about the cash bail thing. One of the biggest problems is people are so used to the way it's always been that when the poor man is locked up and who he hasn't had his day in court. We don't even know if he did it or not. But when he's locked up, it's like, okay, even if he's innocent, then well, sometimes these things happen. We have to live with that. And when a wealthier man is released, is out on bail for doing the exact same thing, we that doesn't make us angry. It doesn't make us furious because we are used to it, even if the man was guilty. You understand? And so to crystallize this point and to bring a clear focus, the the problem is that when someone is accused of committing a crime, if you look like me or my brothers or my little cousins, then you already look guilty. And if you look, let's just say our former mayor, you look like Mitch Landrieu's son, nephew, or something like that, then there's a good chance that you're innocent and you deserve to have your day in court. And so that is the crime. And the thing that incensed me more than anything is that, so what I just broke down is definitely about race, about the perception of race, right? But of course, in a city like New Orleans, in a city like Atlanta, and a lot of urban centers all across this country, a great deal of the people who are a part of the system, they themselves look like me. But but the country, all of us, black and white people, you know, we have been we wait, let me we have been, like, our way of viewing ourselves have been shaped by this outside world.
Well,
And so that Mhm.
that's when you look at it, Chuck, we are placed on a platform that shows us in negative ways 90% of the time. Listen, when you see something on television, it's not only are we being is America being programmed, but so are we in the African American community. You don't know how many people I've come across, and they'll say to me, "Oh, you know that boy probably did whatever they said he did. Look how he looked." Excuse me, look how he looked. He's his hair is his that's his signature. That's how he wants to wear his hair. He doesn't have to have his hair shortcut or bald or whatever. If he wants to have dreads or whatever in his head, it doesn't make him a criminal. It doesn't make him guilty. But this is what America sees. It's the same thing that black women get. Black women, you turn on the TV, you see all these reality shows and all this. So automatically the stigma is black women are confrontational. We're loud. We're we want to fight. We're ignorant. We're ghetto. We're this and that because this is the perception that you see on TV. You know, when you go back to the times and you touched on that when you said how somebody looks like you, somebody looks like your brother. Listen, there was a time when there was some shows and some things going on television that depicted us in a positive manner. Where are they? Find that show today.
I mean, which show are you talking about? Like the Cosby's or something like that?
I
A Good
mean, look, the
Time?
different world. Look, even though well, good times, they just never got out the ghetto. But the issue with good times was it still showed something that America doesn't think happens. James was still in the house every day, going to work, making a living. Florida was there. She was taking care of JJ, Michael, and Thelma. They were a family. They were a family. They were everyday people trying to make a living. They weren't on the system. They weren't doing this. They were trying to make a living. You go to the next one. You got what's happening. You had mama, and mama was there, and she was taking care of her kids, and she worked, and the kids was going to college, and I could go on and on. There are not shows like that now. There are shows now that we gotta show our ass, excuse my language. We gotta do this, we gotta do that, we gotta be popular, we gotta do this is black women have been taken. We're now the epitome of beauty, but it's not us. Like there are people who are doing blackface models that are now wearing, getting tanned and doing they're looking like us, but they're not us. You got a whole family, the Kardashians. I don't know. They now just look like a group of black women. The culture that puts us to be negative is the same culture that wants to be us. And that's not, I don't want to get into the black white issue and because I think we have a lot of things that we can touch on with that. But we're being weaponized in that type of way so that when they put us in front of the media, you put a young black man in front of the media. The media puts a young black man out there and he's going to jail because he doesn't have money. We know he's going to jail because he doesn't have money. But the media takes that same young man and they put every charge that's against him. And then they go on Facebook or somewhere else and find a picture of him holding some money or, or looking crazy or whatever, just some kind of social media picture. And they put that attached to him. And then they weaponize him and they try to give justification as to why he should stay in that jail. See, he's dangerous. He's dangerous. It's not the fact that he can't afford the bail. It's that look at him. He's dangerous. He needs to be in jail. He needs to be locked up. Meanwhile, the guy who's done the same crime as him, but doesn't look like him and has more resources, is able to leave because we need to hold on and wait to see whether he's guilty or not. Look, I'll give you a prime example. This Kyle Rittenhouse guy, I'm blown at the fact that there's a judge and prosecutors and everybody else that is already giving this young man the benefit of the doubt. There is no doubt his mama drove him to this place with a weapon. He walked down the street. He is on video shooting people. But they have made this young man into a troubled child. When he
Mm-hmm.
was young, he had this. When he was young, he had that. He had troubles, blah, blah, blah. And they are humanizing this monster.
Mm-hmm.
They're humanizing him. And so that's why it's okay if he would get put out on bail. We know this is my like little baby Charles Manson. But if he got put out on bail, it would be okay because we still have to sort through and wait to see what's going to happen. Meanwhile, you have someone over here who's been accused of something totally different, robbery, rape, whatever the situation is, accused. No video, no evidence, just what they've collected. And they can't make bail. So they're going to sit in there for 3 or 4 years until the trial has happened. And what happens is everybody forgets about it. We know about it, as soon as it happens. But after the first year, well, that young man is still sitting in jail. And besides his family, nobody else cares. So the system now has some free labor. They have some money because they're going to get paid for having him in there. So it's a win-win situation. Until we stop allowing private jails and until we stop allowing jail to be lucrative, you're not going to see changes. It'll be a little bit, little one by one, little small things. But when you're talking about money, they're not going to change that because here's a chance for us to make, if we put this man in jail, innocent or not, if he's in jail, that's money we're making.
Hmm.
We make money
But
off each prisoner.
but
So that's
they
money.
but like when you take something like marijuana that's been legalized in several states, and and even here in Louisiana it's been decriminalized. So at the very they ain't put people in jail for marijuana no more. So I think even just that change, that has to you know I think eventually going to see like a big reduction in the amount of people incarcerated. I would think because there were a lot of people who ended up in jail behind bars because of
Well, I
because of
thought so
marijuana.
too. But let me tell you. So Roman Donson, he's from up north, Homer area, Louisiana, and he was one of three strikes, all of the marijuana. Okay, went to jail at 21. He's in our prison ministry. He happens to have sickle cell, so we see him and talk to him on a regular basis. He's still in jail now. From what I was told, because of the new laws and everything, they're the dockets are backed up. They're doing this, they're doing that. This is somebody who was strictly in jail for marijuana, first sale, second, three strikes, you're in prison for life. That was, I think, September, October of last year. They were supposed to get. He's still there. He's still there. And so, what I've been asking is, when are we going to, like, we know the law's been passed, we know everything. When are we going to start letting these people out? And
Well,
so,
they've started. I get there's a guy. This dude was in Slidell actually, and he was actually the best man in my cousin's wedding. But I read his article, an account of what happened to him on the radio. And my brother was listening. He said, "Man, you don't know that's Foots. He was in Paul's wedding." And so when that guy got out, he came here to Cafe Istanbul. And he told me, he said, "Man, this is what happened to me. I got a marijuana conviction, um, probation. That's the first." He said, "I got a second marijuana conviction, probation." He said, "I got a third marijuana conviction." He said, "It was less than 2 pounds of weed. Life. We ain't talking numbers. We talking letters." Now, to me, that's outrageous. I mean, you mean to tell me that something that is so awful, that will make you do such crazy things against humanity, that now is legal in probably half the states in this country? So if this thing is legal now, that meant that all that hard time they was giving people for weed all this time was BS, just
well,
complete BS.
the war on drugs was complete BS. It's like now there is a huge, huge medical rush to help people who are addicted to opiates. It is now a pandemic, as they say. But when crack was on the rise, it was not an epidemic. They were criminals.
No, it was the same thing. Like if you look at the history of these drugs, they fluctuated in terms of, who, was the drug of choice for who or whom. And so in the 60s, like opioids, heroin, stuff like that was associated with black people. And so they were like, my uncle was one of them. He came back from Vietnam, addicted to heroin, and he went to jail, and he went to Angola twice, and ain't nobody was talking about, well, we probably need to get him help, or get him treatment or something like that. It's like, you gotta learn, bro. You gotta learn. Take these 10 years and see if you had enough time to learn about how you should and shouldn't conduct yourself. But you're right, and now it's it's white folks, and it's a totally different thing. Now there's a brother who wrote a book. He is a neuroscientist at Columbia. His name's Carl Price,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess he's from Miami, and he wrote a book called High Price, and he just talked about the entire history, like even like marijuana. If you go back, what that whole play Reefer Madness was about, that it's like, oh my God, you know, because marijuana was associated with black folk and Mexicans and stuff like that. It didn't change. That perception didn't change until the hippies came
Until
along
Woodstock.
in
Woodstock.
in the 60s.
Yeah,
That's when
Woodstock.
that's when the perception of marijuana changed. But before that, it was like, oh my, they got newspaper articles you go pull up about marijuana, and you would swear they talk about like heroin and crack
Yes.
in like the
Yes.
1930s. You
But
know, so
that's why when people, a couple of panels I've been on, and people will say, "Why is everything about race?" And I said, "Well, here's the problem. We're not making anything about anything. The facts speak for themselves. I'm not pulling a race card. I'm pulling a fact card. Everything I say, I can back up with the facts. This is what has been happening because you've been under a rock and you're just now understanding because you're woke and you now are starting to see things. These things have been going on for years. Nobody's playing the race card. We're playing the cards that have been dealt, and these cards have been unfair and unjust. It is the same thing when we talk about Black women. Systematically, we have been brutalized when it comes to women's health care. We have a morbidity rate when we're going in hospitals because Black women, there's a stereotype that we're tough, that we're strong. They even have the, Black girl magic and this and that. Yes, we are strong, but Black women are not stronger than other people when it comes to pain. If we're in the hospital and we're giving birth, we need to have our pills. We need to have whatever. If we need to have something, we need to be able to get it. We don't need doctors saying, "Oh, it's just a little bit. You're gonna be okay. Let's see if you're gonna dilate a couple of more centimeters, and we'll figure things out." That's not how we do things. It's not how things should be done. It's not the way that is fair in healthcare, but it's what's happening, and it's been happening for a very long time. And this is the reason why people just can't sit back and say, well, it's not happening to me, so I really don't have to speak on it. Or I didn't, that didn't impact me, so I really don't know anything about it. There's a lot of things in life that don't impact you. Everything basically that I do besides sickle cell didn't impact me. Our homeless outreach, I've never been homeless. Our children that are suffering from grief and loss and ready to commit suicide, that's never been me. But it doesn't have to be me for me to take a stand and want to do something about it. When we have people that are sitting back and looking through the glass, and not jumping in until it becomes popular or trendy, or until it's cool, or until some celebrity has said, go ahead and do it. This is how we've gotten so far away from what we need to do. It's like you said with the pandemic, it slowed down social justice. It's like we're not, social justice was a trend for some people because it was popular, because the news media was covering it, because celebrities and politicians were out marching and doing all these things. And when the pandemic came, all of a sudden everything stopped.
Yep. Well, Dr. Lex, it's been like a great conversation. I'm glad so much. I'm glad we got a chance to catch up because it's been
Yes,
several months, since before Miss Ida came
yes.
by.
Addie came barreling through. Addie came barreling through at us.
So, but I guess we'll be doing it again next month. I certainly look forward to it. And peace, soul, and love.
Same here, Chuck. It's been an honor. Thank you so much. It's always great to chat up. And next month we'll be talking about, I guess, our new regime that's coming in. We'll have new stories and new things to talk about. Thanks,
Beautiful. I look
Chuck.
forward to it. All right.
Have a good one.